In this video, but my baby wants to swim. Lady claims I stole her car and the police were called. And we don't pay you to be 2 minutes late. Over the course of a year, it's hundreds of dollars. Then I find out an interesting detail. But my baby wants to swim. This just happened a few hours ago, so I'm pretty frustrated still. So a bit of a backstory. I was with my grandfather at this new fishing pond in town. They just put a bunch of catfish in it. He's had a really rough time lately, and I thought I could help by spending the day with him after my grandmother committed suicide. But anyway, the cast. Me, obviously. G, my grandpa. EM, entitled mom. EK, entitled kid. We were set up on the bank into some brush where the catfish like to hide, and we had a pretty boring morning, but G always loved fishing, so it was really calming and relaxing. Well, we were talking about going and getting some lunch and coming back when a pair of guys came down asking if we wanted some sandwiches since the rest of their group didn't show up. We, being hungry, took 2 of the sandwiches and invited the boys to fish with us. By this time, we were pretty successful reeling one in every couple minutes. They happily agreed and we had a good time when one of the boys had an emergency with his girlfriend. I guess she was pregnant and couldn't get off the couch. After they left, we spent the next 30 or so minutes in complete silence when EM and EK come along. The conversation went as follows. EM, excuse me, can my son swim here? G, sorry, we've got our lines in, and if you get in here, you could tangle them or get hooked. EK, but I want to swim in the corn dogs. He was referring to the cattails. Me, you know, if you do that, you'll scare all the fish away and might get something stuck in your foot. EM, how dare you tell my son what he can and can't do? Points at the cattails. You go ahead and play in the corn dogs, baby. G, hey, you're gonna scare away the fish. EM, I don't care. You can go fish somewhere else. Me, okay, Karen. We started reeling our lines in when this kid tries to grab onto one of the hooks because it's pretty. Thankfully, he missed, but my grandpa told him not to do that, and we left that area before EM could scold us for tormenting her baby. We ended up on the other side of the pond before we threw our lines in again. Not even 20 minutes later, I feel a tap on my shoulder. Me, who was napping with a hat over my eyes. Huh? What? EM, my baby was wondering if he could fish with you guys. Me, I'm gonna go with no. This gear is really expensive and is not a toy. EM, please, he really wants to learn how to fish like a pro. Me, sorry, but I just can't trust strangers with my stuff, and if you wake my grandpa up, he'll be cranky and he will definitely say no. EM, oh, come on, it can't be that hard, and he'll be super careful. After that, I basically told her to fuck off, kindly, and bungeed our poles to my chair just in case and went back to sleep. A while later, my grandpa told me we should probably go, and we packed up our stuff. On our way back, we passed EM and EK without even acknowledging them while the little boy cried he wanted the shiny on the end of my stick. We were about to reach the car when I feel a tug on my pole and a scream behind us. EK had grabbed the treble hook on the end of my pole and now had it lodged into his hand. EM ran over screeching like a banshee about how we had hurt her baby and we were irresponsible and blah blah blah. Finally, my grandpa crouched down to inspect the hook. Gee, all the barbs have gone through his hand. I'm gonna have to cut them off. EM rips EK away, which in turn pulls on the hook in the kid's hand. EM, oh my God, how dare you touch my son? I will call the cops on you, you pedophile. Shame on you. What would your wife think of this? I bet she would be My grandpa cut her off. Gee, for your info, my wife committed suicide less than a month ago and I came here for the day to relax and instead I have to deal with an entitled bitch and shithead kid. So if you do not want your kid to get an infection, then I suggest you shut the fuck up and let me do my thing before you bitch about anything else. EM scoffs. Fine, but you better not touch him. My grandpa grabbed the pole and just cut the line, leaving the hook in the kid's hand. We started walking away when EM spoke up. EM, hey, aren't you gonna take it out? I don't want my baby getting sick. G, it's kind of hard taking out a hook without touching someone. I would suggest going to the ER as soon as you can, but by judging by your character, he might lose his hand from you talking to someone in the lobby. We got to the car when EM looked my grandpa in the eye and said, "If I was your wife, I would have killed myself too," and walked off. I ended up having to drive us home because my grandpa was in tears. It's sad how many people in this world don't understand how hurtful saying something like that is to a person. Breaks my heart. Lady claims I stole her car and the police were called. We've been looking for a car for our youngest. Looking through online ads, we came across an ad for a luxury car that only wanted 1/3 of what this car blue book's for. Said car just suddenly stopped starting. My husband is a mechanic, so we decided to look at it just to see. Immediately, he sees a couple potential problems as to why it doesn't start. Car has new tires, body nearly perfect, interior needs a few easy fixes, still well worth way more than owner is asking, even with paying for repairs to get it running. Of course we bought it. Youngest is ecstatic about getting a luxury car for graduation. Husband gets car running, even easier fix than he originally thought. And now it's time for crazy lady. It's time for plates and registration. Off to the DMV we go. Come out with the temporary tags, and as husband is putting them on the car, this lady walks up. CL. Excuse me? Me. Distracted by my phone. CL. Excuse me? Me. I'm sorry. Do you need something? CL. Yes, that car. Me. My car? What about it? CL. Where did you get it? Me. We bought it a few weeks ago. CL. That's my car. Husband. No, it isn't. Now get away from us. CL. Yes, that's the car I was going to buy from previous owner and you stole it from me. Me. Lady, I paid previous owner what they were asking and nothing was said about you. CL. Previous owner and I had an agreement about the car and you came in and made her sell it to you. I want it back and I want it now. I had to buy that piece of shit over there instead. Now you take the piece of shit and give me my car. Me. What the fuck ever, bitch. Get the hell out of my way before I run your stupid ass over. CL. I'm not going anywhere. I've already reported to the police that I have found my stolen car and they're on their way. Husband. Are you fucking nuts, lady? You can't just report a car stolen because you missed a chance to buy it. What this insane bitch doesn't know is we're actually waiting on the previous owner to show up to get her plate and registration because there was a mix-up with the title, DMV fault, and we had to wait to get that fixed before we could title, register, and plate it, so we're still using the correct plates. Previous owner can then turn in her plate and get a refund for the months not used. 2 police cruisers pulled up about 5 minutes later. Previous owner pulled in right behind them. As the 2 officers are getting out and asking who called, previous owner walked up to me and my husband, asking what's going on. She hadn't noticed a crazy lady yet. CL immediately started yelling how she had paid for this car and we forced the previous owner to give us the title instead. She wanted us arrested and her given the title and possession of the car right now. One of the officers walked over to us. I grinned because it's one of my friend's sons. Grew up with and was friends with my oldest son. Officer. Hey Brandy, want to tell me what's going on? Me. I don't really know. We bought this car a few weeks ago from her, pointing to previous owner, and while we were waiting for her to show up to get her plate, this woman started screaming at us about stealing the car. Something about they, pointing between previous owner and crazy lady, had an agreement about the car, but she, previous owner, sold it to us instead, and now she, crazy lady, is demanding we take whatever car she ended up buying and we give her this one. Previous owner. Oh my god, this is exactly why I didn't sell her the car in the first place. She's my neighbor and she's insane. She asked me about it when I decided to sell it and I told her she could buy it, but she wanted me to get it running again but still sell it to her for the low price. I told her I didn't want to deal with it and that's why it was low. If I got it running again, I might as well just keep it, but I would definitely raise the selling price to at least double. She's called me a few times asking if I had it running yet and I've told her no, but she kept telling me to call her when I did. Officer then, going with procedures, checked all of our IDs, checked the bill of sale, previous registration, and ran the VIN. Everything checked out. Officer, I think we're done here. Addressing crazy lady. Ma'am, it's a crime what you have attempted here. Actually, you made a false report, which is a crime, and I could arrest you, but I'm not. I'm sure you're just upset and made a bad judgment call, so we'll let it slide. CL: No, it wasn't a false report. That is my car. Officer: Ma'am, stop. Just stop. I could also charge you with attempted car theft, but we're all just going to walk away now. CL: No, I'm not just gonna walk away. This is bullshit. Pointing at previous owner: You owe me. Amount twice what we paid for the car. And you. I will get my car back. Officer number 2: Ma'am, step over by the cruiser. We need to have a talk. I gave the plate to the previous owner, and officer number 1 told us to have a nice day. Husband and I went ahead and left while previous owner went into the DMV. CL was still ranting at officer number 2 about allowing us to steal the car. Previous owner texted me later that CL was in the back of the police car when she left, still yelling. I'm not worried about any future contact with CL. We don't live in the town where the DMV is or where they live. In a couple of months, the car will be 2 hours away with my youngest at college. CL doesn't know our names and previous owner doesn't know where we live. We don't pay you to be 2 minutes late. Over the course of a year, it's hundreds of dollars. Then I find out an interesting detail. I've worked at many retail chains, have had many terrible bosses. Here's one story I think I can give up without any repercussions. At a small specific retail store 5 to 6 years ago at this point, I was confronted by my old boss on a specific event that I was late by 2 minutes. Previous day, he had asked me to come in on my off day and at an earlier time than I normally do. I agreed to come in on my off day and work a shift I'm not normally used to, but it's retail. It can't be that difficult. My old boss asked me to work 7 a.m. to 4 p.m., and I showed up at 7:02 a.m., which in my state, there's a 5-minute window for everyone, and this was 100% not a habit of mine at all. I'm normally one to show up 5 minutes early every day and wait aside the time clock. I clocked on and walked to my department with a drink I had already purchased the previous day. As I walked into the department, the manager greeted me, then said, "When I schedule you at 7 a.m., I expect you to be in department by 7 a.m., not a minute later. We can't pay you to clock on, buy something, and then start working. Over the course of a year, that adds up to hundreds of dollars of lost labor for one individual." I told my old boss that my drink was from the previous day and that I just clocked on 2 minutes late. My old boss replied with, "That's not my problem. You need to plan better. You were scheduled at 7 and we're losing cost of labor each minute you're not here. Be in department at scheduled time." Which is not true. I spoke regularly with a payroll employee and she explained to me quite some time prior that the company does not pay you 3 minutes before or after your scheduled time. So if you clock on at 7 a.m., you're not getting paid until 7:03. If you clock on at 6:57 a.m., you're not getting paid until 7 a.m. Same for when you return from lunch. However, if you clock on at 7:04, after that 3-minute window, you begin getting paid immediately that minute. My boss was right. I need to plan better. I asked for a printout of my timestamps going back as far as they had record of, and I tallied up each day that I had arrived 3 minutes early and did not get paid for it. I counted well over 330 minutes within a 3-month span that I was not getting paid for, which ended up being a little over $110. I gave my old boss a copy and said, "You can pay me for these days where I was in department on the dot without getting paid for it." My old boss then replied, "That's not how our company policy works." He then went into detail to explain to me exactly what I had already known and gave him a copy of. Yet my old boss is now recognizing that he's contradicted himself and willingly lied to me. When everything clicked in his head that he's contradicted himself, it was far too obvious because his face went bright red and he started smiling. In my opinion, like he had been caught. My old boss: "Well, you know the policy. We can't pay you for that." Me: "Then I'll begin my shift when I'm getting paid, not the minute you schedule me. It's not like you're losing labor if you're not even paying the employees that window of time. Schedule me at 7 if you like, but I will not be clocking on until 4 minutes after the scheduled time, as you will not be losing any cost of labor for it, and I'll not be losing pay over your personal policy." For about 3 weeks, I clocked on 4 minutes late every day, no matter how early I arrived. I eventually got a warning from the building's HR that it's riding the line and very close to getting a write-up and down the discipline road. I explained to her the entire story, as she seemingly did not like this manager of mine either. She laughed pretty hard at the whole thing and offered me a department transfer with a higher pay. She reminded me that my behavior was listed under a category that could get me terminated and thought the transfer would be a fresh start. Instead, I put in my 2 weeks notice and thanked her for the wonderful opportunity. The funniest part of all this, years later, I saw my old manager working at a new chain in a similar position to what he was doing when I worked for him. He smiled, waved, I smiled, waved, continued on. As time went on, I also bumped into the old HR manager who was working in an entirely different field. I asked her why my old boss left that company. She laughed and said, "He didn't leave, we fired him for time theft." Apparently, my old boss would take a lunch, leave the building, and never clock out for it.